Jay, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for having me. It's it's been I guess, quite the adventure. What print on demand has allowed me to kind of do and accomplish in life, right? Like everybody starts with, money, 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 but it's also provided
Uh-huh.
a unique way to experience life. So I think everybody should, at least try to get, some kind of
Yeah,
experience. But thank you very much for
that's
having me.
really
Great.
yeah. Thanks for joining, and that's a very important point you brought up. Everybody is really focused on the money aspect, and that's something that grabs people's attention. If you go too deep into philosophy, you just lose people. But actually, that stuff matters even more. So, can you tell a bit more about like what made you want to start in e-commerce and specifically print on demand?
Sure, yeah. So I was a trained graphic designer. That's what I went to college for. I didn't finish my graphic design diploma only because when I started graphic design, there was basically a lack of qualified designers in the market in the Greater Toronto area. I'm in Toronto, Canada. And by the time I had finished my second year out of a 3.5 year program, there were, over 50 or 150,000, I think, surplus of graphic designers. So there was no jobs available,
Huh.
anything like that. And that's kind of how the industry really started to shift 2000, 2001. So that said, I ended up leaving. I got a job offer doing corporate graphic design for real estate folders and stuff. And, you learn so much more on the job than you would if you were sitting, in a classroom kind of thing, especially as an
Uh-huh.
artist, as a graphic designer, as somebody who likes to, visualize things instead of just listen to somebody lecture. So that said, I really honed my skills there for just over 5 years and then ended up at Canada's #1 publisher as a graphic designer there for the next kind of level up on the job as a
Okay,
designer. And
nice.
yeah, and then 18 months later, I was one of their youngest managers, managing 144 graphic designers. So
Okay.
I was able to kind of take what I knew from my technical skill set and apply that in a layman's kind of way to help other designers kind of,
Yes.
raise their productivity, but in a way that traditional employees wouldn't see, their boss as the enemy because I knew how to do it from the ground up and I actually knew how to do what they were doing. So I was able to kind of relay tips and tricks that I had learned, because sometimes you have some tenured employees and stuff that don't want to learn new tricks, right? And that's the #1 mistake I think in life is to
Uh-huh.
assume that you know everything. So yeah, and then being one of the youngest managers on the roster, eventually early or mid 2000s, or I guess 2008 or so, 2007, the economic kind of situation started to look a little bleak. There was layoffs coming down the pipeline, and being the lowest, tenured or seniority manager, I was going to be the first one let go. So I had to jump ship and over to Toronto for a major bank job in the IT department. And then from there, I was another 5 years of shift work in a completely toxic environment. And I just thought to myself, like, what am I doing? I need to get out of here. It was like staring at an ugly computer screen, black screen with green and white text, like mainframe type stuff. And really soul crushing and super toxic. I had a manager who once said, if I had gotten everywhere and everything I wanted, do you think I'd still be in this role 16 years later? And I was like, all I could think of was like, I don't want to be you, you know? So like,
Yeah.
that's not the kind of morale that you should be telling your staff, right? That's not a way to kind of get everybody excited to be there or anything like that. I mean, 12 to 14
Oh.
hour shifts with overtime that you weren't allowed to leave because at the end of the month, yeah, all the consolidations for banks, that's how it goes with all that stuff. So I had to just start supplementing with building my freelance graphic design portfolio. And I literally was putting up hundreds of freelance graphic ads for business cards, logos, and stuff. And then a guy who was selling on Etsy asked me to do some t-shirt design work for him. I sent him a bit of portfolio samples, and so that was kind of how my first kick at the can happened that way. He was paying me $15
Uh-huh.
a design, and then I was like, well, if this guy's selling my $15 designs over and over and over, why don't I change the arrangement to $3 for every t-shirt sold on a royalty basis, or $5 for every hoodie he was selling? And it worked out great for both of us, right? Because then now I'm creating really good designs that I know are going to continue to sell for my benefit, and it's obviously making him way more money that way too. So that was kind of like the intro to print on demand before it was a household name. So
Yeah.
bit of an
Okay.
adventure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds like you had like pretty huge portfolio, and you had learned how to probably really quickly come up with new ideas. There's probably some kind of like template or method or workflow that you're employing to just quickly come up with new ideas, new designs. It's probably something like throwing spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, because you never know which design is going to work. So you have to create a lot of them, right?
Yeah, so in the beginning when I was doing stuff for him, I didn't know really much about the industry at all, right? So he would send me a list of designs that he got. He would, just take other people's kind of imagery and say, "Can you create something similar but better?" So ultimately, I
Okay.
was, yeah, sure, no problem. So I would just create stuff that was better and unique and different in the same kind of niches that he wanted, same kind of idea. But when it came, starting my own Etsy shop, I was like, well, what am I going to do, right? And this is where you completely fail as an entrepreneur for your first time, right? Trying to do something is like you create what you think is amazing, like the Picasso or something, right? A beautiful piece of art, and hope that
Yeah.
the world will love it just because you do and you
Yeah.
put your passion and time into it, and nobody
But nobody
wants it,
cares.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You spend 3 weeks making 200 designs and not a single sale, and nobody's even looking at your stuff because you don't know how to keyword it with regards to any kind of niche market or anything like that, right? So it was a definite wake-up call that way. But to get motivated to sell new things, I think is easy once you've started to make sales, but in the beginning it's hard. You have to be self-disciplined. It's all mindset, because you're not going to make money right away, right? I'm sure with
Okay.
like kind of your ventures, you're a bit of a pioneer yourself in certain ways. But yeah, it's a difficult go in the beginning, I think, especially back then, because there were no people on YouTube telling you how to do things easier or more easily. There were no subscription groups to join. There were no Facebook groups. It was just Facebook groups for artists maybe, but that was it. There was nobody selling online anything, right? So it was a bit of a struggle in the beginning for sure. But that's kind of like what I want to do now
Okay.
is give everybody. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you had a really amazing graphic design background, and then there was somebody who had market research and analysis backgrounds, and when these two come together, then you have a business. Is that so? And if that's so, then yeah, what do you suggest to beginners? Like, be the guy who's just analyzing trends and find a good graphic designer, or learn both, or what's the best way to start?
That's a great question. So, yeah, I think there's two kinds of people when you're doing any kind of print on demand or any kind of ultimately e-commerce, right? Starting out, there's the artist side, like myself, who, almost puts too much emphasis on the passion and the art craft itself. And then there's the other side, the other kind of spectrum of person or people that are more data driven, that do the research, the analytics, and are more concerned with the metrics on a daily basis and stuff like that, right? And both individually will not make for any kind of success. You need to have a little bit of both. From my experience. So for me, it was like understanding a whole new world that I didn't care for at all. Analyzing data, what was happening, why are people clicking and not adding to cart, what is going on there. Also, getting out of my own head in terms of the romanticism, the attachment to my artwork, when I need to now analyze the market, validate a niche, and see what kind of gaps there are in terms of design in the marketplace, and create for the customer as opposed to creating for myself. On the other end, if you're, data driven and that sort of thing, you need to figure out and be absolutely honest with yourself. Are you going to do the designs yourself? If so, check, ask people, pull your designs up in search results, ask friends, family, whoever. Don't tell them it's yours, but ask them if they, the top 5 that show up on any results page on any platform you're on, to pick their top 5 or top 3 designs. And if yours are not one of them, then you need to kind of, start taking a design course or just outsource it, because you're going to waste potentially, months and months and years and years trying to develop your artistic ability, and it might just not be worth your time, right? Time is worth your money too. And I would pay a professional to do something that I can't do, which kind of now brings you to what you're saying, to the tools that to help validate the niche. So I don't actively have anybody I work with. My wife helps me a lot with certain things because she does the same thing, but I don't have like a business partners or anything like that. Really, it's more of a one-man show, but I do use a bunch of tools now. Like none of these tools ever existed back then either. So it was, we've come a long way, and I don't see a reason why. That's another thing. A lot of people pride themselves on not ever having used the tools, but if I was to start over, why would you not use these tools? Half of them are free and they're cheap, and it takes the guesswork out, right?
Yeah, that's a really good insight, and I totally agree with it that you need to build like a minimum viable product and validate it quickly, be it graphic design or web design or whatever. And I have this problem. I have this issue, and I'm a perfectionist, so I want to build something like, move pixels around and then have the perfect copywriting, perfect images, everything. And in the end, there's a risk you will realize that nobody cares, that you've been going the wrong direction. So it's really suggested to just make some kind of like, initial version, quickly test it with your friends or family, or just run some paid ads, see like what's the traction, is anybody adding product to the cart, is anybody buying it, before you invest all this time. It's going to be so much more efficient this way.
For sure. That's another thing too, is that, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough, because once you've created something that will sell, you can always maybe tweak it or have a next version, or a different drop later on, like a new, a version 2, a new update next year or the next season, if it's a seasonal kind of thing. But ultimately, like, stop trying to be that perfectionist, right? Because I've been there too with artwork, with, I'm a very visual person, so I want things balanced. I want it to look right. But the average customer just isn't artistically educated enough to care or understand what the efforts we're putting into it, right? They see something, it's more of a knee-jerk or emotional reaction. If you can tug on the emotional heartstrings, that's all you have to do, and the design only has to be good enough, right?
Okay, Jay, then you asked me before this recording, I mentioned that I've done print on demand myself before, and you asked me what made me switch to supplements, coffee, vitamins, and so on. To answer your question, we had personalized poster website where anybody could go on the website, they could enter their city name, that city would pop up like on a stylized map, like a stylized map would pop up, and they can then change the design a little bit, zoom in or out, and so on, and check out, and they would get this map in their mailbox. It was a really nice home decor or gift. And everything, like, it was super difficult initially. We struggled for a couple of years, and that's a long story. But in the end, we cracked the code, and we managed to scale it. But why we decided to sell the business is because there was really low recurring sale rate. So once you buy this poster, you might tell some friends about it, so on, but you're not going to return and buy more posters. One is enough. It's not consumable. So yeah, we decided to sell the business and do exactly the same. We had learned how to do paid ads, SEO. We learned how to do social media posting, influencer marketing, and so on. So we thought, okay, we'll take this system, we'll take all the workflows we developed and so on, and just employ the same strategies in the supplement space. The problem was there were no print-on-demand type of suppliers in the supplement industry. All we could find were 90s style websites, super old school websites. They were not even mobile friendly. And all the exchange and communication was happening through email. So if you got orders, you had to submit the CSV file in the end of the day with the orders and so on. So it was super backwards, and we decided we need to change that. We need something like Printful in the supplement space.
Right.
So that's our story. Which brings me to my next question. How do you deal with this? Is there always new customers coming in, or you're trying to somehow monetize your existing customer lists, or how do you do this? What's the ratio between you and existing customers?
That's a good question. I haven't actually done the numbers on the ratio of return, partially because I sell on Etsy and Merch by Amazon, and partially because with Amazon I don't have the data there, but on Etsy, for example, I do have a lot of return customers. I would probably, if I had to guess, about 35%, which is pretty solid, I think, in terms of what I do in terms of like mostly t-shirts, like garments and apparel. My wife, for example, is probably closer to 60%. It is definitely absolutely, like, with, if you can kind of use the consumable idea or mindset when you're creating designs, right? So I sell a lot of things that would be for gifts for other people, right? So if people are satisfied and they gift it to somebody and they see the reaction, everything is good, they'll come back and continue to purchase from me for other people. And that's kind of one way around not having a literally consumable product like coffee or something or supplements. My wife, on the other hand, is like, and it all comes down to niching down and understanding your the target market, right? My wife, for example, like she was showing me 2 days ago, she had out of her last 5 orders, 3 of them were repeat customers, and she also sells apparel. And out of those 3 repeat customers, they had all each bought 1 item the first time, but this time 1 bought 3, 1 bought 2 items, and 1 bought 5 items. So like, yes, 3 out of 5 were 60% were recurring customers, but they were also buying 200 or 300% more than everybody else was out there. So to do that, I think you really just need to start in a niche, to something that you're a part of. It's just easier to get past the learning curve of trying to understand who you're targeting, right? Like, think of why you are passionate about that niche, who the customers are, where they hang out online, what social media channels that you can leverage for free. Start there. You don't have to invest a ton of money, but what social media channels are your ideal customers hanging out on or spending time on, right? You don't want to be dumping all this effort into TikTok or something if your target audience is hanging out in Facebook groups, right? Like, it just won't make sense. So understanding,
yeah,
I think,
this is you're throwing out like golden nuggets. This is, I think, the second most important aspect is decide early on like who you focus on and build store for this specific group, build experience for them, and of course reach out in the channels they hang out at. That's super important. And I was really surprised you mentioned, you're guessing that you have like 30% returning customers. I was always under impression that if you're selling on big platforms, then you can build loyalty. You can like only by chance maybe. So that's good to hear, actually. That's cool. That means your designs are good enough for people to come back.
Yeah, well, with Etsy, there's like a little star that shows up, so you can see that it's obvious it's a return buyer, and that's the problem when you're doing print on demand and not fulfilling yourself, right? Is that you don't always pay attention to the addresses. Things don't you don't always notice who's recurring all the time, but yeah, I've been fortunate enough because you'll see people like even in their reviews just say this is the third time I've purchased, and it's the experience just keeps getting better and better. So I mean, paying attention to your customers, I think, goes a long way too, right? So if there's ever any kind of query or concern, can I do this? Can I do that? They're literally telling you what they want within that niche, right? So if you're struggling for ideas, just go back and read your reviews. That's another gold nugget, right? What
Yeah.
did they say? What did they comment on? What did they like about the product? Did you maybe do something custom or special for them? If you did, and it still falls within that realm, that niche, then odds are there's going to be a lot of other people who are interested in that kind of design idea, right? So now the task becomes, is it a new idea within that niche? If yes, go for it. Just throw up, a few ideas. If it's not, then how can you make it better or have a unique spin on it, right? Like, like I can't even imagine it, like with the supplement space and coffee space. I'm not one for supplements per se. I was when I was, hitting the gym a lot more back in the day. But in terms of coffee, we drink coffee all the time. So I'm excited to actually get a little bit more knowledge and learn a bit more about Supliful, because I can I think it'll be a good move for us. We're moving to Belize, and that's we're going to be surrounded in Central America by some of the world's greatest coffees. So this is kind of like right up my alley in terms of that serial entrepreneur spirit, where you always want to move on to something or try something new. But like, how were you able to kind of, I guess, retain and evolve when you're white labeling stuff like that?
Yeah, first of all, we would be really happy to have you on board. Um, and then, yeah, to answer to your question, how do you retain a customer in a supplement or coffee niche? Well, first of all, I think I would create a subscription product and convince the customer why they should get the subscription product. First, with the discounts, of course. It's convenience. You don't have to wake up one day super sleepy and realize you run out of coffee. It just keeps coming. And yeah, the customer service is important. It's important to always keep the customer in control. They need to be able to just unsubscribe with one click or just one simple email. They just need to, feel like they're getting their money's worth, and they need to be happy
Yeah,
with the service you
'cause
provide.
it's not like you're rebranding or repackaging or anything like that, right? You're not creating new designs like I have the
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah.
So like to retain a customer long term, you have to consistently, like, do you have email lists and stuff you work with to make sure that your customer is like, you know, new and or understanding new ideas or new anything?
Yeah, and that's really important point you brought up. So with print on demand, you add value with design. With on-demand consumer packaged goods, you add value with new product discovery, with the convenience I mentioned, with educating the customer on the product, on different in the case of sports supplements, you educate the customers on. Do you even need to use supplements? Why you need to use them? How to use them? You compete with providing the context around the product, not by simply advertising it and trying to compete with the price. Because, as you know, in the on-demand space, the price is always a bit higher than you can, as a customer, find in big box stores, right?
Sure, yeah, if they were wholesale.
So it's all about building relationship with customers, giving them extra value than they would get in a big box store.
Nice.
So yeah, if there is like if you would have to give like like a roadmap how to make 1 million in print-on-demand space, what would be the best steps to take? Like, what? Of course, there's no guarantee, but what's the highest likelihood, like in 1 year, how you can reach 1 million in revenue?
Oh man, things are shifting. I would say you'd have to really hammer down. Like this kind of is something I probably won't ever do anymore or anything like that because I don't, not that I've made 1 million in a year, but um, I I am at a point in my life where I also want to enjoy the fruits of my labors, right? Like we said in the beginning, it's not just about the money
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's about experiencing life in ways that I wouldn't be stuck in a 9 to 5 or stuck in doing, jobs of working for other people and making them rich. But so that said, I think to do something like that will come with significant work, right? And your biggest challenge will be to have new items, new designs, or new marketing around, or new information to educate your customer, like you're doing, and then doubling down on that and just doing more of it, right? So you'll have to
Uh-huh.
obviously build a team. In print on demand, you won't be able to design fast enough to do it all yourself. You're going to want to build a team. There's a few platforms out there. I'm just started with my YouTube channel, started outsourcing for the first time to a designer, a video editor I found on Upwork, which is a great reputable place to kind of outsource some products. So you have to know where your strengths lie. Are you the idea person? Do you come up with a lot of the new and unique ideas? Are you able to identify gaps in the marketplace? Because if you're a solopreneur trying to go from 0 to 1 million in 12 months, you're going to need all kinds of help, even if it's the help of AI or whatever, right? Like you're going
Uh-huh.
to need to identify your weaknesses. What are you? Maybe you could be really good at it. Like I can go build my own websites, but I know that if I pay somebody else to do that, they can have it done in a week, where it would take me 3 4 weeks, right? So you have to kind of identify your strengths, weaknesses, stick to what you know and are better at than most, and try to hire somebody or find somebody to help you that is as good or better than you. Never
Mm-hmm.
hire somebody to do what you can do who's not as good as you, because then it's just a
Yeah.
headache. And then, yeah, try to outsource as much as you can to different people, places, or tools. Like some of these tools make it so easy to just kind of find like what's top selling in your niche, and then you can bring, you just do a few little search bar tools or keyword
Thanks.
tools to search. You can
Mm-hmm.
find search volume, and you can find actual sales numbers on different products using all kinds of tools. So like at least you can validate your niche if you have to do it by yourself. But yeah, I would start by not having the goal to make $1 million in a year with print on demand unless you're prepared to really put in the time and
Mm-hmm.
work that I don't think realistically a lot of people want to try to do. But if you do want to do
Mm-hmm.
this, I think it's totally possible. You're going to have to build a team. I would argue that.
Yeah.
What do you have
Okay. To
a
sum it
niche?
up, now, to sum it up, it's not easy and there is no secret sauce. You just have to work and think and be strategic all the time and be patient. But why I mentioned why this question, why 1 million? Because it's something that it's like a buzzword and it drives a lot of young people who are starting out. For me, it was like a dream when I was younger, and of course. Down the road you realize that it's not that important and it's more than enough with less than 1 million to be free, as you said, and enjoy life, and the work-life balance becomes more important. You start to value it more. Yeah.
Absolutely, especially when you
um,
put in context like things or consideration like things like mental health, and you know enter a pandemic, and then the world shuts down for 2.5 3 years, and then the world opens up again. You realize like time goes by like this, right? So for me, it's about the flexibility to be able to travel the world, or do things and see things, but make money while you're not working. Make money, wake up to
yeah.
sales. Yeah, but
uh
you're
Like,
right.
don't
That
be
million dollar
tied
dream.
down to. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
What was it?
this freedom aspect, I guess where it really comes from is that you're not tied down to one place. You can travel, you can work from anywhere you want, and you don't have specific hours. And of course, over time, once you learn to scale, you don't have to invest so many hours. So that's the beauty of it.
That is the beauty. We are leaving in 3 months from now, September, October, November, 2.5 months. My wife and I, we just listed our house on the market to rent out. Hopefully we find a renter soon. We are driving down from Canada through the States, through Mexico to Belize, where we bought property almost 2 years ago. And we just want to be able to, like, I imagine being able to do that. For me, 20 years ago, that was never happening. I was stuck in my corporate role, and that was the way it was going to be till 65 and retire. But to be able to do that and not have to worry about how I'm going to make money, right? Like, I put in the time and effort in the beginning, but now it's 4 to 5 hours, maybe 3-4 hours a week on Merch by Amazon, maybe 7-8 hours a week on Etsy, and at the end of the day, I have enough money to sustain a lifestyle that is full time. And yes, it's work in the beginning, but we live in a time where we should be so lucky to, be. I think we should realize how lucky and privileged we are to be able to do what we want to do, kind of on our own terms, right? On our own terms. Those days are gone. You don't have to be stuck if you're. This goes back to a mindset thing too. If you're stuck in that, I've always called it a comfortable rut, where it's easier to be stuck and roll with the punches than it is to buck yourself out of the rut. Because people just don't want to, they're scared of the unknown. But as soon as you get a little taste of maybe there's something different out there that you don't have to be stuck, it crushes me to see people stuck. And I was one of those people, right? So, I really just want people to try, because you're never going to get to see things or do things. There are always going to be vacation ideas for you. So maybe you work 10 or 11 months out of the year to have 2 weeks off to go spend somewhere, and you put all your focus and time into working hard so you can take your family for a trip for 2 weeks. Like, you could live there and then go visit your family in the other climates for those 2 weeks a year, right? Like, that to me sounds like a way better. But yeah, I could go on forever on that, on the mindset stuff.
No. It's really fascinating that what people can achieve with willpower, with the goal in mind, and just do it, like like Nike says it.
Yeah.
And you said you mentioned that you feel privileged and lucky, and of course, maybe there is some luck in it, but those who do something, they tend to get lucky. You just got to work for it, and sooner or later, things will start to happen. And Jay, you're also sharing a lot of these insights and really useful tips on YouTube. Your channel is linked somewhere down below in the description. And I suggest everybody to go there and check out some really cool content. Any final notes or any question to me before we wrap up?
I mean, I love what you guys are doing. I want to explore that more. So I don't really have any questions that come to mind right now on that, but I will definitely reach out. Absolutely. But for, I guess my advice for people starting out in any type of e-commerce thing is, like, don't expect to make $10,000 or even $1,000 in your first month, and have a bit of a buffer of money, because on Etsy, for example, you hear about people's shops getting put on reserve, which is where Etsy will kind of hold your money and until a certain amount of time, until they validate everything. So you could be making $1,000 a month in sales, but they won't release your funds until they've done their checks on you and stuff. So that's just part of business. Like, if you were to open a brick and mortar, you'd be into it for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, to build an actual shop. So recognize the privilege in being able to leverage somebody else's platform or e-commerce space, and just know that there are going to be fees associated. Anybody that says it's 100% free is probably lying to you, or they're not prepared to grow or treat it like a business, right? And if this is going to be a business for you, be patient, think long term. don't think in terms of weeks or days. Think in terms of months, and then quarterly. Think in terms of, every quarter, right? How can you be better than the last quarter? And everybody, as you know, will spend 3 quarters of the year preparing for the fourth quarter, right? So as soon as January hits, everybody gets to the game plan. Okay, what are we going to do so that when September, October hits, we can blow these sales up? And once you get on that kind of train, now you start to pick the months that are kind of lulls in the first 3 quarters, and how can you boost those, right? So you got to think long term and an overall thing. Don't just try to throw a bunch of, like you said, spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Go into it with a bit of intentionality, right? Try to find a niche, know who your target market is, identify that first, and be ready to spend a little bit of money. I would say if you could have, even $300-400 in the bank, 5,000 or 500 would be ideal, I think, for a print-on-demand startup. But just be prepared that not everything in life is going to come quick, easy, or free. Yes.
Yeah, that's the most important. Be patient, and then just you gotta keep grinding sometimes until you. As I always make this analogy, it's like a spaceship. You have to really boost until you overcome gravity, and then there's just free flow. You can enjoy the benefits. So thanks, Jay, for joining us today. It was really fascinating to hear your story, and it's great to hear that you've managed to align your life philosophy with how you make money and how you sustain comfortable living. So that's really nice to hear, and thanks a lot for sharing that today.
No problem. Happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me. It's, I just want people to know that they can do whatever they want if they really want it bad enough. There's nobody that can tell you no.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jay, again. Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
All right. Nice, Jay. Was pretty good, I think. Thanks again for joining, and we'll start pushing out this content after September once we collect enough episodes. And before we publish it anywhere, I'll send you a copy. If you agree with everything, then cool.
Was my internet okay through that?
No, it's okay. On Riverside, sometimes the video can get blurry and audio can get bad, but it's fine because it's recording locally and then uploading to the clouds, and it's going to be perfect in the end. It should be, I hope.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, man. So thanks again. If you have any questions about Supliful, just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to hook you up with one of our colleagues who can be kind of like a success manager and just make sure that everything goes smooth.
Awesome. That'd be great. I appreciate that. Yeah. I've got a bit of a crazy busy next 2.5 months trying to figure everything out. But once we get settled in Belize, I want to be able to. It's going to be so motivating to look out on the rooftop patio with the shade, working there, looking at the reef and stuff, and then that's when I'm going to that's when I can't wait.
It sounds really nice.
Music, right? Yeah.
I just moved into a new place, and initially I was just going full speed and trying to fix everything and make new closet, kitchen, and so on. But it just takes time, I'm like a bit tired of that, and so I imagine when you move to Belize, it's gonna be tough first few weeks. But at the same time, it's Belize, so it must be really beautiful.
Well, it's exciting too, because as you know, anybody who I would consider myself a serial entrepreneur, and even it applies to my life, where I feel like if I'm too long in one place, 4 or 5 years, I get stagnant. I feel like I need something new, and life's too short to feel stagnant or stuck, right? So, got to go get it. Yeah.
True.
This is great. I really enjoyed this chat too.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for joining, and it was nice chatting. So, and let's keep in touch.
Sounds good. Looking forward to seeing where you guys go. Like you said, this is only 8 months in now, Supliful?
18, something like that.
18,
we launched in in October 2021. It was really tough first 2 years. We didn't know, not 2 years, first 1 year, we didn't know if we're going to survive, but now I think we're on a really good growth trend.
Awesome.
Yeah, we were like plateauing, and we were dependent on external investors, and now it's getting pretty good. There's good interest, and our main KPI is to have positive median revenue retention. It means that we want people who join our platform to be able to sustain and grow their business. We don't want to grow just because we attract new sellers who are jumping on a hype and, oh yeah, I'm gonna be successful and sell something, and then they realize, oh, it doesn't work, and they're gone. We want to grow because people, even if we don't attract new sellers, we still want to grow because sellers who join, they grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of our philosophy. We had our own print-on-demand experience. So yeah, we've been in their shoes. So
nice.
Sorry.
I'm just gonna say, I think it's great that you're, supporting the sellers that way and helping them get better, because like you say, it's easier to maintain a recurring customer than attract new, right? Instead of just throwing marketing dollars. I think that's awesome. There's a severe lack of that. I see everybody just wants to push the subscriptions and attract new customers, but the support is where I think is, if it's already starting to set you apart, I think that's where your major win is going to come from, which is great. It's great to hear you say that.
Yeah. All right, Jay. Yeah. So again, thanks, and good luck with moving to Belize. Let's keep in touch.